Hope and Shadows. Chapter 2. Apple Brandy Makes Strange Bedfellows by Stephen Little. My Little Pony and all associated characters are copyright by Hasbro. "You can't be serious. He actually propositioned you?" Diamond asked. "Yeah, I know. I stopped him from stealing some pony's radio, and instead of begging me to let him go, he asks me out," Applebloom said with a small smile. "So what happens then?" the pink pony inquired. "I made him give back the radio, then I deposited him at the local police station. I told him that he admitted his crime and served out his sentence. I'd think about giving him a chance." "You didn't," Diamond gasped in shock. "I did. Hey, he was cute, and he didn't seem to mind my messed up appearance, so that earned him some bonus points," the yellow mare explained. "After I told him that, he confessed that he only asked me out because he thought that it would catch me off guard and he could get away. He already had a wife and daughter." "The nerve of some stallions," Diamond Tiara declared. "It's all right. I'm used to ponies treating me differently," she sighed. "Anyway, I had to leave the next day anyway because Luna and Twilight showed up in town looking for me. Those two had been dogging me for years." "I'm sure the princess didn't mean you any harm." "I know that, Diamond, but I promised myself that I wouldn't come back until I had my cutie mark. Of course, I had no idea that I'd run into Dusk in the next town." "Oh, and what did you think of the little princeling?" "He grew up handsome, but I always knew he would. His parents being who they are, it couldn't be helped," Applebloom acknowledged with another small smile. "In a way, he was the one who finally convinced me to come home." "After 17 years, how was he able to accomplish that?" the pink mare asked. "Well, he recognized me immediately, and the little jerk froze my hoofs to the ground before I could run off. He obviously learned a great deal from Luna. Either way, I gave him the silent treatment for a while, but he just wouldn't go away. He saw the scars on my flanks, and I guess I just snapped because I started yelling at him. Okay, I was screaming at him, but he just sat there and let me scream in his face. He said that I could shout all I want, but he wouldn't let me go until I agreed to listen for a change." "Well, don't keep me in suspense. What did he say?" "He said a lot of things that I don't really want to get into right now. Needless to say, it got me, and I promised I'd come home. I wanted to see Sakura first, but unfortunately I never got there. You know the rest," Applebloom summarized quickly. The yellow earth pony realized that Diamond Tiara had been staring at her scarred flank. "You know, Diamond, you keep staring at my hindquarters, and I'm going to take it personal." Tears were rolling down the pink pony's cheeks as she looked up at Applebloom with a look of utter remorse stamped on her face. "I'm sorry, Applebloom, I couldn't help it," she stammered out. "It's because of me, isn't it? The reason your flanks are scarred like that. It's all my fault." "Listen, Diamond, I'm not going to lie. I've hated you for a long time. You are the meanest, snottiest, most horrible filly I ever knew. There were times I thought you were horrible to me for no other reason than to see me suffer. I was jealous." The admission that interrupted Applebloom left her mouth hanging open. "You had everything. You had your friends, your family. Heck, you were even picked to be a member of Princess Luna's personal entourage. All I ever had was my dad, and he really only cared about his business." "What about Silver Spoon?" "After you left, I found out that she didn't really like me. She just acted like me so I wouldn't pick on her. She was afraid of me," the pink earth pony told her. "What did my leaving have to do with it?" Applebloom asked. "The day in class when Miss Cheerily explained to every pony that you had left town, I made a comment something about the town and every pony being better off without you. Silver Spoon slapped me across the face. I'd never seen her so angry before. She said I was a horrible mare, and that even she told me the truth. The reason why she hung around me all those years." "Wow, I never would have guessed. I mean, no offense or anything, but you kind of deserved it," Applebloom remarked. "I know. I did deserve it, but that was the day everything started to change. Miss Cheerily expelled me from school, and no pony would talk to me for months. For once in my life I think I felt a small fraction of what I put you through, and it was horrible. It was around then that I got a visitor. Twist was heading home after her third day of work with Bonbon when she saw me sitting in the garden behind my house. She walked into my backyard, and without saying a single thing, she gave me the biggest hug I've ever had. That sounds like Twist. She always knew when some pony needed a hug, and she never shy about giving them one. Yeah, she's something else, all right, Diamond said, smiling as she thought about her wife. Anyway, she said that she was sorry about how every pony was treating me. She said that what I did and said about you wasn't right, but that doesn't give every pony the right to treat me so bad. She told me that if I wanted, she'd be my friend. At first, I thought she was setting me up as some part of a joke, but she swore that she was sincere. Normally, I would tell her to get out and leave me alone, but I was so lonely, and I took a chance. From that day forward, she and I were inseparable. We went everywhere together. She even got me into a kitchen to help her make sweets. Me in a kitchen, can you believe it? Applebloom smiled as she listened to Diamond Tiara related everything she and Twist went through over the years. I have to ask, if you two were so close, how did Pipsqueak come into the picture? It's a little complicated. Twist and I fooled around a bit, nothing really major yet, and we weren't in a committed relationship. I think it's important to understand that. Anyway, Pip had this wild idea about opening a playhouse here in Ponyville. Since my dad is the richest pony in town, he came to the store to ask my dad for a loan. Being the pony that handled the books, I was present during the meeting. I listened as Pip explained his dream about opening the first theater in town. The passion and drive I heard in his voice mesmerized me. I sat there listening to him and found myself getting lost in his words. Pip has matured into a very handsome stallion, and that didn't hurt either. Long story short, my dad agreed to loan him the money, and I was appointed to oversee the business to make sure it turned out to profit. I worked very close with Pip for weeks, and I have to admit that we'd been flirting with each other fairly heavily. When he asked if I knew any pony who could handle concession, I naturally suggested Twist. It was only a few days before we opened the doors that I found out that Twist had been making small advances towards Pip as well. When I found out about it, needless to say, I was shocked. Oh no, I can tell that didn't go over well, Applebloom said with a slight cringe. Indeed, Diamond agreed. I said some things in retrospect I probably shouldn't have, but Twist was always the rock that grounded me. She calmed me down, and we talked it over rationally. We both cared for each other, but somehow we both had feelings for Pip as well. I suggested that we let him decide, and we both agreed that no matter what happened, we'd still be friends. That next day we sat down with him and let him know exactly what was going on. That damned stallion knew the whole time. If he weren't so cute, I'd have slapped him. He explained that he knew about our feelings for each other as well as our feelings for him. He admitted that he was very attracted to both of us and found it impossible to decide. That's when Twist said something I don't think I'll ever forget. She suggested that the three of us should be mature enough to share and be happy with being with each other. And it's been that way ever since. Applebloom spun around to find a thin but strong-looked brown and white mottled stallion standing there with Twist and the two young fillies from the picture on Diamond's nightstand. You girls behaving yourselves? No pony lose any teeth? The two fillies jumped onto the bed and snuggled close to the injured mare. Yes, dear, I was just telling Applebloom about everything that happened while she was gone, Diamond Tiara explained as she hugged her daughters as hard as she could. Oh, did you tell her about Silver Spoon and Snails running off together? Twist asked. Applebloom was trying to figure out which foal was Twist's and which belonged to Diamond when she heard that statement. What? Snails and Silver Spoon? Really? Before any pony could answer, Applejack, Big Macintosh, and Garnet poked their heads into the room. Everything okay in here? Applejack asked. Yes, sis. I was just having a little discussion with Diamond here. Nothing to worry about.
Good to hear,
Macintosh remarked.
We talked to Fluttershy and your other doctors. They said you could come home when you're ready. We even made your old room just the way you left it.
Thanks, Big Mac. I think it's time to get home. Some familiar surroundings will do me some good. Applebloom started to stand up when her front legs buckled, dropping her to the floor. Macintosh offered a hoof to help his sister up.
Garnet, give me a hoof over here,
he asked. The purple stallion stood to one side of her to give her something to lean on as she slowly got to her hooves.
Easy does it, sis. You're a mite weak after being in this hospital for too long.
Applebloom was slightly irritated at the comment. I'm not weak, she said a little coldly. I just need to get my blood pumping again. I'll be fine. Applebloom smiled and slowly walked towards the door. Good luck, Applebloom. If you ever want to talk, you're always welcome at our place, Diamond Tiara told her. Thanks, Diamond. I just might take you up on that offer after I've had some time to rest. Garnet walked up next to the dlazerus pony. Would you like help getting home? He asked. No, thank you. I appreciate that you stayed with me while that poison worked itself out of my system, but right now I need to be with my family. I'm sure some other filly around here wouldn't mind your attention. Applebloom never once turned back. She walked between her brother and sister out the door and down the hall, making their way towards the hospital's exit and the road to Sweet Apple Acres. It took them 3 times as long to get to the farmhouse than normal, but Applebloom insisted on making the journey herself, unaided. Walking into the house, the youngest of the Apple siblings slowly made her way up the stairs.
Do you want anything to eat? Her brother asked her. I'm sure that hospital food can't compare with good home cooking.
Thanks, Big Macintosh, but I think I'm just going to go to bed for a little while. I'm just so tired. I'll get something later.
Need help up the stairs, sis?
Applejack asked. No, I'll be fine. Just have to take it slow. Thank you, though. I appreciate it, she said, smiling at her sister. It took her a little while, but eventually she made it to her room. Meg was right. The room was exactly as she left it. Walking over to her bed, she slumped down and quickly fell asleep. It was several hours later when she woke up. Slowly opening her eyes, she found a mass of freckles and 2 large blue eyes staring back at her. Who are you, little one?
My name's Toffee. Are you really my Aunt Applebloom?
The inquisitive little filly asked. Yes, your mother is my sister. How old are you, Toffee?
I'm 3.5 years old. Mummy says my ribbon used to be yours. Do you want it back?
It was obvious to Applebloom that the little filly didn't want to part with the ribbon. I love my ribbon, but I think it looks cute on you. You keep it safe for me, okay? Your Grandpa Apple gave that ribbon to me when I was about your age. It's very special. Can you do that for me?
I promise, Aunt Applebloom. Mommy said you've been gone a long time, so I brought this for you.
The little foal pushed a photo album in front of Applebloom.
I have to go to bed now. It's past my bedtime. See you in the morning,
she said as she wandered across the hall to her own room. Applebloom stared at the album for what seemed like hours. Finally finding her courage, she opened the album and began to flip through the photographs. The first 2 pages were pictures of the grooms. She admitted to herself that they looked handsome in their top hats and bow ties. Looking to the next page, she saw Spike. Wow, Spike, she thought to herself. You went all out there. Turning the page, she found the picture of the brides. Applebloom marveled at the dresses she assumed Rarity had made. On the next page were the group photos. The first picture she saw was of her parents. Applebloom counted the parents, noting their relations to her sister's friends. She realized that either they could not attend or, like her parents, were deceased. The next photos were of the colts and fillies in attendance. She smiled at how smart Scoot and Belle looked in their blue tunics. In front of them were the younger ponies, Tootsie Flute, Dinky, Dawn, Dusk, and Garnet. It was the image of Garnet that caught her eyes. The little purple unicorn colt was wearing a bow tie that was the same color as her mane. Thinking back across those 17 years, she remembered that the headbands and bow ties of the grooms were supposed to be the same color as their bridesmaids. Flipping back through the photos, she found the pictures of the grooms. Sure enough, they matched. Did he have a crush on me for that far back? She asked herself. She noticed also that paper around the picture of the fillies and colts was wrinkled and discolored, as if it had gotten wet and dried multiple times. Applebloom continued to flip through the photos. The reception, the family photos, every picture that would have included her, she found the same discolored pattern. Their tear stains. Applebloom looked up from the album and found Caramel sitting in the doorway. "How long have you been there?" she asked timidly.
"Long enough."
Before she could object, Caramel walked into the room and closed the door behind him. "I still remember the day Princess Luna told us," he said, sitting in front of her. "Exactly 1 day after the wedding, as you requested, she gathered all of us and told us that you had left Pony&Wolf to find your own place in the world. She showed us a letter you wrote and gave Applejack your ribbon. I don't think I've ever seen your sister so heartbroken or angry. She actually punched Princess Luna in the jaw." "She didn't." "She did, and after a lot of hurtful things were said, a search party was organized and we went after you, all of us. Every free moment we had was dedicated to finding you and bringing you back home. Princess Celestia herself sent a whole regiment of her royal guard, split between Sweetie Belle and Scootaloo, to scour the forest, but all they found were a few hoof prints and this occasional telltale hair. It wasn't till then that we realized you had left the forest behind and were somewhere out there, traveling the world by yourself." Caramel paused. "For 14 years we held out hope that you'd come back to us. Every time we got a report that you had been sighted, Princess Luna and Twilight would check it out personally, but every time they came back with nothing but a case of mistaken identity or the news that you were gone from the town without a trace, each time they came back empty-hoofed, your brother and sister would cry themselves to sleep." Big Macintosh cried? She had never known her brother to cry, not even at Granny Smith's funeral. According to Fluttershy, yes. It wasn't until Applejack and Fluttershy became pregnant that the search was called off. The royal family continued the search by themselves until the day you came back. Others would have helped out, but they had families of their own that they had to put on hold for too long. I am ashamed to say that after all those years without so much as a word of shred or proof that you were still alive, many of us thought you were dead. We held a small ceremony by the pond. Everyone was there, except for the princesses. They wouldn't give up the hope that you were still alive. Out by the pond there is a headstone next to Granny Smith with your name on it." "Where's Applejack? I should probably talk to her about this." "Whatever you and your sister have to say to one another, it can wait till morning." Caramel got up and walked towards the door. "Hey, Caramel, thanks for talking to me," she said remorsefully. "I'm sorry for putting all of you through so much hurt." Caramel walked back to her sister-in-law and lifted her gaze to meet his. "No, Applebloom, thank you. I've never had a real family before, and now that you're back, this family is whole again." Caramel smiled. "And even if it doesn't look like it, I understand why you left. You had some problems you felt to be needed to work out on your own. I've been there, Applebloom. The despair, the hopelessness. They're old companions of mine, but I learned to stop listening to them, and that's when I found your sister. Just promise me that if you start having those feelings again, when you feel like your world is crumbling around you, remember that there are a lot of ponies here that care about you, and we're always willing to listen and help you no matter what." Caramel left the room quietly and closed the door behind him. Applebloom lay there and listened to his hoofsteps grow softer and softer. "I never knew Caramel had such problems in his past," she thought to herself. The sound of someone crying broke her train of thought. Getting off her bed, she walked out into the hall. Standing absolutely still, she listened. At first all she could hear was her own heartbeat, then she heard it. Some pony was crying at the end of the hall. Using all the skill she had learned from years in the forest, she stealthily made her way to the end of the hall. The room in front of her used to belong to Granny Smith, but the voices she heard belonged to Applejack and Caramel. Applebloom pressed her ear against the door. "Tell me it's real this time, Caramel," Applejack cried. "I've dreamt of her coming back so many times before. Tell me this is for real." "Shh. It's all right, darling. Applebloom is back home and safe. She wants to talk to you in the morning." "She does?" "Yes. Now come to bed. You need your sleep as much as the rest of us. It's been a long day." Applebloom backed away from the door and silently made her way downstairs into the kitchen. She didn't feel like sleeping anymore, and the thought of the overly sweet food ponies usually eat made her sick to the stomach. She couldn't get the sound of Applejack crying out of her head. She wanted to forget. She wanted to forget the pain she caused to her siblings. She wanted to forget the anguish she had caused Princess Luna and Twilight, but mostly she wanted to forget all the lives she had put on hold because of her own foolish selfishness. Applebloom looked around the kitchen, but nothing interested her. She did notice that the house didn't look all that different from what she remembered in her memory was correct. Then she knew exactly where something was to help her forget, at least for a little while. Garnet had just finished locking up the sheriff's office when he felt a strange warmth coming from the pendant he had hidden under his collar. Quickly putting his keys on his belt pouches, he pulled the pendant out to find it glowing a dark crimson color. "Oh, Applebloom, what are you up to now?" he said with a sigh. At the mention of her name, the pointed shield began to glow purple and pointed in the direction of Sweet Apple Acres. No matter which way he moved the pendant, it always pointed in the same direction. An Applebloom tracking device. Interesting, he thought. Garnet ran as fast as he could towards the local apple farm. Approaching the front gate, he slowed down, a fast gallop to a slower canter. He checked the pendant again, and instead of the house, it pointed towards the barn. Garnet knocked on the large barn door, but no one was there. Checking the pendant again, he noticed the shield wasn't pointing towards the barn, but more to the side of the barn, towards the orchard. North, past the barn. There's only one thing out there other than apples. Figures she'd go there, he thought to himself as he ran towards the Cutie Mark Crusader clubhouse. Garnet galloped through the orchard, haphazardly, until he reached a small treehouse in the northernmost corner of the apple orchard. Approaching the ramp that led to the open door of the clubhouse, Garnet could hear singing. "We are the Cutie Mark Crusaders, on a quest to find out who we are. We will never stop the journey, not until we have our cutie marks." Garnet sat outside the door, watching Applebloom prance around the clubhouse. "I haven't heard that song in 17 years. "Oh, hi, Garnet. I figured you'd show up sooner or later. Come to join the party?" she asked him, giggling. "How much of your brother's apple bourbon have you drunk?" "Only a little." "And those 3 bottles I passed in the orchard on my way here?" he asked. "Oh, I guess I forgot about those." Applebloom drained the last bottle in a single gulp and let it fall to the floor. "All gone. Pooh." "Didn't any pony ever tell you that you shouldn't drink alone?" "I'm not alone. You're here, silly." "Oh, that gives me an idea." She got up very close to Garnet and whispered in his ear. "Last time I was here, well, not the last time I was here, I was all crazy and stuff. The time before the last time I was here, I caught Scoot and your sister going at it like a couple of bunnies. It sounded like they were having a lot of fun. How about it, Garnet? You want to have some fun with me?" Garnet was shocked, to say the least, at the sudden proposition. Here, I'll make it easy for you." Applebloom walked in front of him and lowered her chest to the ground, presenting herself to the purple unicorn. "No, Applebloom." He pushed her rump to the side, sending her into a roll. She continued to roll until she lay on her back, spread eagle in front of him. "We can do it like this too, I guess." Garnet took hold of her left hind leg and folded it to her right, effectively rolling her onto the side. "Applebloom, you're drunk," he said, sniffing the air. "And apparently you're in estrus too." "Maybe." "Do you know what kind of a position this puts me in?" "I can think of a few positions I'd like you to get in." Applebloom giggled. "I'm serious, Applebloom. I'm the only sheriff in this town. I'm alone with a drunken mare in heat that I'm not married to. I could get in a lot of trouble. Think, Garnet, think. Well, I can't leave you here all by yourself, and I can't stay here with you. That has disaster written all over it. I guess you're just going to have to come home with me." "Anything you want, handsome." Applebloom tried to get her hoofs, but stumbled repeatedly. Garnet levitated her onto his back and set about snuffing out all the lights. "I can walk, you know." "I somehow doubt it," he said as he walked out the door and down the ramp of the clubhouse. As he made his way through the orchard, Garnet felt his passenger put a hoof against a very sensitive spot. "Applebloom, if you do not remove your hoof from under my tail immediately, I will bind your legs." "Aw, no fun." Garnet walked through town to his home as fast as he could, with Applebloom draped across his back, her front and rear legs bound. Making it to his front door, he silently entered and shut it behind him. "Hey, Garnet, late night tonight?" "Oh, hey, Dusk. Give me a few minutes. I'll be right back." Garnet took the inebriate mare to his bedroom and eased her onto his bed, releasing the bonds at the same time. "You should probably get some rest. I imagine your head will hurt pretty bad in the morning." Applebloom yawned loudly. "But I'm not even tired," she said as she laid her head on his pillow. Garnet smiled and lay down next to the bed. As softly and gentle as he could, he began to sing to her. "Hush now, quiet now, it's time to lay your sleepy head. Hush now, quiet now, it's time to go to bed." He was halfway through the second verse when he heard her snoring gently. "Works every time," he thought, remembering how he used to babysit Jato and Honey. Garnet leaned over. He softly kissed her velvety nose and whispered into her ear, "Sleep tight, Applebloom. I have always and will always love you. I just wish I could tell you when you're awake." Garnet got up and quietly left the room and closed the door. "Ah, that's sweet," Dusk said, leaning against the wall just outside Garnet's bedroom. "Shut up," Garnet said sarcastically. "Seriously, though, I need you to do me a favor. As soon as it's light, I need you to get your sister and those two lovebirds, Honey and Jato, and bring them here. See if you can get Tootsie Flute and Dinky too." "No problem, but I have a few questions. 1, who was that? 2, I can smell the alcohol all over her, so why is she here instead of the station? And 3, why is she in your bed?" "That mare is named Applebloom. Yes, that Applebloom. The reason she's here is for your mothers, my parents, or her sisters found out I put her in a cell, they'd have my hide. Yes, she is drunk, and yes, she's an estrus at the moment, which is why you are going to stay away from her, or I'll tell Tootsie Flute you have a crush on her." You wouldn't, dude, that's so cold." "Just keep your hooves to yourselves and we won't have any problems. As for the reason she's in my bed, well, it's more comfortable than the couch, and she really needs a good night's sleep," Garnet said. "Okay, well, if she's sleeping in your bed, where are you going to sleep?" "To be honest, Dusk, I don't think I'm going to get any sleep. I've got a lot of work to catch up on, as well as a letter to write to Applejack. I'm just going to be on the couch working on reports. I won't fall asleep, I promise." Dusk retreated to his own room, leaving Garnet to his work. Walking over to the coffee table, he spread out the small stack of reports he needed to finish before work the next day. Before starting on his work, he took out the parchment and began his letter to Applejack. "Applejack, this is Garnet. I'm writing to let you know that Applebloom is with me. She hasn't run off again. I'm sorry to say she had an incident with 4 bottles of Big Macintosh bourbon. Judging from her reaction, I would suggest locking up any other alcohol in the house. Also, I am hesitant to mention this. Applebloom is an estrus. Don't worry, nothing happened, though. I did have to shoot down her offer rather bluntly. I figured I'd introduce her to Dusk and the others in the morning, but then we'll bring her back to the farm. I just didn't want you to worry. Her absence has been hard on all of us. Take care, and I'll see you in the morning. Sincerely, Garnet." Using the teleportation spell he learned from Princess Twilight, he sent a letter to Applejack, specifically to her dining room table. With that out of the way, he started on his reports. Nothing truly important ever happened in Ponyville. Most of his reports consisted of run-of-the-mill infractions, mostly public drunkenness, since Berry Punch opened her bar. Garnet didn't really see the point of writing up reports for such minor things, but his mentor, Sheriff Silverstar, insisted on it. Applebloom woke up with a splitting headache. From the other room she heard some pony snoring loudly. Looking around her surroundings, she noticed with shock that she wasn't in the Cutie Mark Crusader clubhouse. "Oh, Celestia, whose bed is this, and where is that snoring coming from?" she asked to herself. Rolling out of the bed, she cautiously walked out of the room and into the hall. She stood there silent and perfectly still when a gray-blue alicorn stallion walked up to her side. "You're still good, Dusk," she said without the slightest bit of shock or surprise. "There aren't many who can sneak up on me, and where is that noise coming from?" "That would be Garnet." "Does he always snore this loud?" she asked. "Only when he's not sleeping in his bed. Anywhere else isn't comfortable enough to keep him from snoring," Dusk explained. I heard you and Diamond Tiara were talking all last night about your travels and why you came back to Ponyville. Did you tell her?" "I gave you my word that I wouldn't. Your secret is safe with me for as long as you want me to keep it. I owe you, Dusk, and I always keep my word, so do me a favor and never, ever ask me that question again." Apple Bloom walked towards the sofa and found Garnet sitting there. His head was resting on the table and his front legs hanging down limp. "I'll take care of this," Apple Bloom said, crouching down. She crawled between the table and the sofa. Positioning herself under Garnet, she stood up with him draped across her back. Walking back towards the hall, she paused in front of Dusk. "You didn't see anything." "See what?" he responded. "That's a good little princeling." Apple Bloom walked back into Garnet's bedroom and closed the door. She lowered Garnet gently to the bed when he started to talk in his sleep. His voice was very coltish and not the deep, soothing voice it usually was. "Mummy, Daddy, why are you so sad?" he said softly. Apple Bloom didn't want to wake him up, but felt a little guilty listening to him talk in his sleep. "Where's Apple Bloom? Why wasn't she at the wedding? I thought she liked us." At the sound of her name, she couldn't help but listen. "He must be dreaming about the time I was gone," she thought to herself. "Why is Aunt Luna crying, Daddy? Did I do something wrong?" "I'm sorry, Mummy. I know I'm not supposed to go in the forest by myself, but I wanted to help," he said, kicking in his sleep. "Why did she leave, Belle? Was it something I did? If you guys find her, I promise I won't tag along with you anymore. I'll leave you all alone so I won't bother you. Please bring her back." Apple Bloom couldn't help but tear up. "It wasn't you, Garnet. You were only 6 years old. You had nothing to do with it," her mind cried out. "I don't care what you say, Dad. I'm going after her, and you can't stop me. Hey, let go! Let me go! You can't keep me in this room forever!" The outside world is no place for a colt on his own. Had he really tried to come after her by himself twice? She asked herself. Garnet had curled himself into a ball and began to cry softly. "Why did you leave, Apple Bloom? Please come back. I miss you so much. We all miss you. Please come back." Garnet had broken down into quiet sobbing. Apple Bloom climbed into bed with him and snuggled into his hooves. Laying her head against his chest, she began to stroke his mane. Very softly she spoke to him. "It's okay, Garnet. I'm here. I came back. Everything's okay." "Why did you leave us? Why did you run away? I missed you so much." "Oh, Garnet, I didn't mean to hurt you. You were only a colt at the time. I didn't know how you felt. I just couldn't handle it, seeing every pony with some pony to love and nothing for me. No cutie mark, no special pony to love me, nothing," she said barely above a whisper. "You've always had me, Apple Bloom. I know I'm not a big pony yet, but one day I will be, and I'll try real hard to be big and strong like my dad. Then maybe you'll like me too." "I do like you, Garnet," she whispered to the sleeping stallion. Garnet's voice became deeper, less coltish. "Sleep tight, Apple Bloom. I have always and will always love you. I just wish I could tell you when you're awake." Apple Bloom looked up. His eyes were closed and his breathing was slow and steady. "He's still asleep," she thought. Snuggling closer to the stallion, she closed her eyes with a contented sigh. So this is what it feels like to be in love. Morning came all too quickly for Garnet. He tried to stretch, but found Apple Bloom in his hooves. Garnet mentally freaked out. "Oh, dear Celestia, please tell me I did not mate with her last night. Please tell me that I did not take advantage of a boozed-up mare in heat." Apple Bloom steered and looked up at him. "Good morning. Sleep well?" Yeah, actually, how did I get in my bed?" he asked. "You were snoring pretty bad out there. Woke me up. I walked out there and the dusk told me you were a sleeping issue. I brought you in here and put you into bed. It was the only way I was going to get any sleep. Don't worry, nothing happened. By the time you woke me up with your snoring, my mind was already starting to clear, so don't worry." "Okay, would you like some breakfast?" he asked hopefully. "I can get my own breakfast." Apple Bloom stood up and stretched. "Apple Bloom, I didn't mean anything by it. It was just a question." I know, thank you. I'm still not used to being around other ponies. Sometimes it can get a bit claustrophobic, if you get my meaning. I understand. Too much interaction probably isn't at all good right now, but I had invited over some mutual acquaintances and a couple of new friends I thought you would like to meet. Nothing big, no pressure, just thought you'd like to meet them. All right, but I need to get some food. I'll be outside if you need me, she said as she walked out the door. Outside? Garnet thought to himself. He got up and quickly followed. He found Applebloom grazing in the backyard. Walking outside, he decided to join her. Garnet found that the experience of grazing on his own lawn wasn't all that bad. He still preferred a dandelion sandwich, but all in all, it wasn't an unpleasant experience. Walking back inside, they sat on the couch. So, about last night. I don't want you to think I'm one of those ponies who shakes her flank at just any stallion. No, not at all, Garnet reassured her. I mean, I never would have done that if I hadn't been drinking. A cyan blue Pegasus colt zoomed in through a window and interrupted the moment. Back yeah, I win. I'm the greatest. I am the greatest. Jato, calm down, please, Garnet asked him. From the shock of red, orange, and yellow in your dark blue mane, you'd have to rainbow and Soren, son, Applebloom said. Buck, yeah, I am. You want to make something of it? Cool it, Jato. She'd squash you like a bug before you knew what was happening, Garnet warned. Okay. So, Garnet, who's the broad? Excuse me? Applebloom asked. You're skating on some pretty thin ice, Jato, and I'd appreciate it if you'd refrain from using that word around my house, Garnet informed him. It's just a word. What's the big buckin' deal? Buck, buckety, buck. Jato, language. I swear you use that word just to irritate people. A white unicorn with a violet, dark blue striped mane walked into the house. Right behind her was a golden-colored earth pony with a blonde mane. If your mother heard your talking, she'd ground you for a month. Hello, Dawn. I must say that you grew up every bit your mother's. How are they? I haven't seen her since the hospital. My mothers are fine, she said flatly. They send their regards and hope that you are well. Who are you racing anyway, Jato? Garnet asked. Just Honey. She still thinks she can outrun me on the ground. Ah, did you hear that? He called me Honey. That's because your name is Honey, Dusk said, shoving her lightly as he came in the door. Sorry, Garnet. Dinky's out of town, and Tootsie Flute has to pull a double day, so I guess we're all here. What did you want? Everyone, this is Applebloom. She was a friend of mine when I was very little. You guys don't know her, really. Dawn, Dusk, you two were just babies, and Honey, you and Jato weren't even born yet. Applebloom had to leave on, a mission out of town for a long time, but she's back now, and I just thought you'd like to meet. I'm sorry about what happened a few weeks ago, barging into your home and everything. I was sick, but I'm better now, so no hard feelings? Applebloom asked hopefully. I don't know about Dawn, but I don't hate you. Anyone Garnet likes can't be bad at all, Dusk said, giving her a big wink. I've just met you, and I already know I like you. Have you met my mom? I know she'd like you, too. Oh, we should go over there now. She threw you a super-duper big party, and her parties always make ponies happy, so if you want, we can go there, and you can meet my daddy, too. Jato put a hoof over Honey's mouth. Honey, you're rambling again. Sorry, baby bird. Don't call me that, Jato protested. Applebloom couldn't help but laugh quietly. You have to be Pinky's daughter. You act so much like her. You know my parents? Oh, this is just wonderful. I bet they'd love to see you again. I wouldn't be too sure of that, Dawn said. You're a bad liar, Garnet. I already know about Applebloom and the real reason she's gone for the last 17 years. The other ponies looked at Dawn in shock. What do you mean, Dawn? She didn't go on a special mission? Jato asked. No, she didn't. Dawn, don't do this, her brother pleaded. She ran away from this town and every pony in it. She didn't care about what it would do to our parents or our friends. Ask your parents, each of you. Ask them why they spent so much time away from home while we were growing up. Ask them why they cried themselves to sleep almost every night. Dawn was upset to the point of tears. And just when we were starting to have a normal life, you come waltzing back to screw it up again. Apple Bloom sat there in shock. The words hurt, but in her mind she believed they were deserved. Slowly getting up from the couch, she silently walked towards the door. She took one look back at Dawn and the room full of confused and unsure ponies. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just wanted to come home. I'm sorry," she said as she walked out the door and back toward Sweet Apple Acres, her face red and her eyes full of tears. "Apple Bloom, wait!" Garnet shouted as he ran after her. "Way to go, Dawn. That was real classy. She's trying to make up for things past, and you just rip into her," her brother scolded. "Yeah, Dawn, Mom and Daddy already told me all about it. It's sad about what happened, but you didn't have to be so big, mean meanie pants about it," Honey reprimanded. Jato just stared at Dawn for a while. "You know, I don't really know what's going on, but that was totally not cool." Jato flew out of the door after his friend and the crying mare, leaving Dawn standing there. Garnet eventually caught up to Apple Bloom as she approached the West Bridge out of town. "Apple Bloom, please wait." She stopped, allowing him to catch up. "I'm sorry about what happened. I didn't know Dawn was going to react like that. I should have expected it. My actions caused so many ponies so much pain, and it's all because of me." "Don't say that, Apple Bloom," Dusk said as he walked up to them. "We're not all like my sister. She tries so hard to be like our mothers and our Aunt Celestia, but dang it, all she can get under a pony's coat sometimes. She's not all bad, she's just confused right now. She'll come around, you'll see." "Oh, I'm so glad I found you." Honey ran up and gave Apple Bloom a big hug. "Please don't be sad, because if you're sad, then I'll be sad, and if I'm sad, then my little baby bird will be sad." "Stop calling me that," Jato shouted as he landed next to Apple Bloom and Honey. "Yeah, I'm sorry about Dawn. What she said wasn't cool at all. Hope you don't think we're all that way too. I don't know about any of this, but I'm sure it can't be all that bad." Apple Bloom grabbed Jato and hugged both him and Honey. Thank you all." Jato struggled in Apple Bloom's grasp. "Ugh, why do mares have to be so mushy?" The group of 5 ponies walked down the road to the Apple family farmhouse. Most of the morning chores had been completed already as they reached the old homestead. "Thanks for walking me home, guys, and thank you for being my friends, even though I'm much older than you. I don't have many friends, and I count myself lucky to be involved in your group. I hope we can hang out some more in the future." "No problem, Apple Bloom. We all think you're pretty cool," Jato said, smiling. She now stood in the doorway of her home. Turning to Garnet, he watched the happy expression fade from her face. "Garnet," she said softly, "you need to put out that torch you're carrying. Go find a mare you can be happy with. As far as I'm concerned, you're always going to be that little unicorn colt with the red bow tie." Apple Bloom leaned out and softly kissed him on the cheek. "I'm not good for you, Garnet. If you keep pursuing me, you're only going to get hurt." Apple Bloom closed the door on a very shocked group of ponies, none more than the purple unicorn stallions who stood there, mouth open, listening to the sound of crying swiftly fading from the other side of the door. Wow, every pony. Wow. This chapter was just cool. Really, just cool. I mean, Apple Bloom getting drunk. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. Really. Oh my god. But there is one thing. I think that there will happen something between her and Garnet. Yeah. If you could see me right now, if I had no ears, I would be grinning all around right now. Because, as I mentioned at my reading of Luna the Matchmaker, I have not reread this story. I am experiencing this story with you. So all the emotions you might hear in the dialogues that I'm trying to imitate as good as I can are real. I'm not acting any of them. Okay. Stay true. Don't drink too much apple bourbon. And sincerely yours, Visual Pony.